Alright guys, so we have Advanced Quest Part 12 dropping over here on the NA side of things in a couple of days, and as per usual, I'm going to do a guide showing you guys my clears and explaining what the quests actually do. And this is kind of a nice Christmas present for us over on the NA side of things because these actually aren't all that annoying. If anything, they're kind of on the easier side if you know what the mechanics have, and it's not like there's a whole lot of mechanics to play around anyway. And if you're wondering, well ZTL, why should I be caring about these? Why should I even try to clear these? In the future, we are going to get missions that give you 9 Saint Quartz for every 3 advanced quests that you clear. So whenever you do have all of these done and you're caught up, you'll get a nice bag of Saint Quartz. So without further ado, make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff for the daily FGO grind. And just if you like to be informed, maybe you like to know what's going on both versions of the game. But let's start getting into this, starting off with the first one. Now, the first one over here is the Jewel CE, and you're going to be fighting some Lamias. Now, I did this one pretty much completely free to play, either servants that you could get just from the friend point gacha, like 3 stars and below, or they were free to play servants that you could pick up for free. And that's because it's really easy. All of the Lamias are very low HP, they're not all that tough, and the main gimmick is that they all have a super nice passive that gets mitigated whenever you burn them. So for instance, I think somebody like Caster Liz is really strong because she can burn all of the enemies, or someone like Kiyohime can apply burn, someone like the free-to-play Berserker Jalter applies burn whenever she does damage, and you also have command codes that I didn't utilize in my setup because I don't know where you're using your command codes, but feel free to use those as well. If you have somebody like Koyan Dart, she's also a very strong option as well. But even then, the only one that I guess you kind of have to look out for if you're trying to brute force your way through this is one of the first ones that has a resistance to all attacks, so it's a little bit tankier, but if you just feel like brute forcing your way through it, you should be able to get this one done pretty quickly because the first 2 waves are around 25,000 to 39,000 HP, and the last node is 66 to 69,000, but they only do crit damage things, so logically you could just blow them up before they attack you and move on with your life. And again, I know some people are going to say, well, snake jewels aren't exactly the most sought after material, it's not like I'm going to be farming these all day every day. It's just nice to have done for the missions, because think about it like this, it's 9 Saint Quartz, baby, and then all those 9 Saint Quartz are going to add up. Do not be like me, trying to scramble Saint Quartz, trying to summon for Low-Eye, and then you just miss out on all of them. Have all that Saint Quartz whenever the missions come in, and you can start stockpiling them and start mapping out who you want to summon for and all that good stuff. Now, the second one is where things get a little interesting. I was going to do this one free to play, but my gameplay ended up being 15 minutes long. It took way too long to try to just condense in this video and for me to talk over it, and that is because you have basically 3 different types of enemies in this. You have the instructors, which are the Shinjuku archer gun enemy guys. Those are the main bosses that you're going to be fighting, and then you have these textbook tomes that whenever you beat them you get a buff. Usually something like an arts buff, a buster buff, a quick buff, something permanent. And you're going to need those because all of the instructors or the gunmen have resistances to different card types. And one of the things that you'll see is that whenever you use your NP, you get that NP sealed on that character for 3 turns. So the idea is that you do damage with your normal cards and your NPs. So if you have somebody, for instance, like Bazette, she's going to absolutely cook this one up because not only is she going to be getting all the buffs, for Buster, Arts, Quick, to the point that all of her crits are going to be doing mad damage, but she also doesn't really technically use her NP. All of her damage is coming from counters and then doing crits with her face card. So if you have her, she's really good for this, or really any crit servant, right? You pop one of Super Orion's NPs, sure, it might get sealed for 3 turns, but you already got the crit damage and anything. You're just going to start beating the crap out of everybody that you're fighting. The one thing you do need to keep a track of is that there are these mechanical enemies that if you leave them for 3 turns, they will take themselves out and do 3,000 damage to your entire front line, and you do have healing rate received down, so you can't stall your way through theoretically, although I'm pretty sure you still can. It's not like that it gets reduced that much, but you do want to make sure that you're not leaving those guys just sitting around, because then you're going to just be taking free damage for no reason. So just keep that one in mind going through this one. It's really not all that hard. It's just a little bit longer, with the first wave having 5 enemies split into 3 appearing at the beginning part of the fight and then 2 pop in afterwards. Then the second one, has an instructor initially, and then there's a backup instructor, and then there's an extra bomb, and then but you have all the textbooks going in. If you're prioritizing what units take out what enemies, you can really start beefing up your main DPS. The gameplay that you're seeing right now, I just decided to go a little bit more aggressive. I only brought Waver as the support because I didn't want to bring somebody like Castoria, but I did bring my Morgan, who's only NP1, and I did bring Primhild, who's also like NP2, I think, on my JP account, so not the craziest NP levels. You could easily replicate it with like a Summer Ibuki if you have her. In fact, I think when I did this initially, that's kind of what I did. Most of these, I just brought Summer Ibuki and just looped as much as I could, and then whenever I couldn't use my NP, I would just smack them with big crits. Because you're going to reach this level of inevitability where you're just getting so many different buffs on your main DPS that even if they're not necessarily a crit servant, when they start just getting, you know, buff after buff after buff after buff, they're just going to start doing big amounts of damage. Although you might get kind of stopgapped if you have like maybe only one DPS of like say a Buster or an Arts or a Quick Servant. They might get stopped by certain people, which is why I decided to bring Morgan and Crimhild, just because Arts and Buster, and I like both of the servants. So realistically, not all that difficult. You can easily chew your way through this one if you just have a halfway decent box. You know, you should have the free waiver either from the free 5-star ticket or from finishing Fuyuki. If you also picked up Tamamo, you've been playing that long, that is also nice. I mean, but also consider people like Jufu are really good. I mean, even Hans can be brought in for something like this. In fact, I think he pops in at the very end for me because I think Crimhild gets taken out. So yeah, not all that hard. It might take you a little bit longer, but aside from that, it's very, very easy and super straightforward. Finally, there is kind of the next rendition of the three-way servant battle. So it started off with the Saber Lily one that had, what was it, Coup Proto and Robin Hood, I think. And then we got the one with Geronimo. Now this is for extra class servants. So essentially, you're rewarded for actually fighting them with super effective people. In fact, this is one that my gameplay run actually did fail at the very end there because I got a little unlucky and Kagetora was the only person remaining and she had to go fight Salieri, and you get really punished for bringing type disadvantage against people. So you'll see that, you know, my Kagetora is able to do like millions of damage to Bibi. She just beats her into the ground, but she does the same NP to Salieri, and you're like, dude, resisted shouldn't be doing like 5,000 damage, but that is because this is one of those type chart things, you know. They want to make sure that you understand how all the extra classes work, which I kind of get, you know, kind of test your players, make sure they know what's going on with your extra classes when you try to bring in more, you know, extra class bosses and everything, especially with stuff like Ordeal Call 2 and 3 coming out that are going to feature more and more extra class servants. But if you do not know, rulers are weak to Avengers. The Moon Cancer BB, the one with the break bar, she is weak to rulers, and Salieri, the Avenger, is weak to Moon Cancers, right? So that's kind of like the simple triangle that you have going on there. Now, there are free-to-play servants for all of these, but it kind of depends if you've been playing long enough. One of them is BB. BB is available right now if you go do like the Sarah storyline, and you can get her with rare mana prisms, I think, on NA right now. She will become free later, so I can understand that if your, say, Moon Cancers aren't super great, maybe you put this off a little bit, or you just don't really have a good offensive Avenger. I mean, if you got somebody like Jalter, she absolutely just obliterates Himiko, because, again, you're pretty much getting, like, double advantage or something going into this one. But, again, I can kind of understand if you just do not have somebody that's really good going into this, because it's not like, oh, you can bring a friend, because Advanced Quest has to be all servants that you own. You can't bring in, you know, any friends or anything along those lines. So maybe you do have a really strong ruler, and you have a really strong Avenger, but your Moon Cancer's not super great. You can always try to forego that, which is a really strong Berserker, which I believe is what I did for the original run on JP. I just brought Summer Ibuki, Castoria, and then probably like Tamamo or something along those lines. You guys know I'm a huge Tamamo fan, so any excuse I can get to bring her into any art setup, I will absolutely take 100%. But I also wanted to show off, you know, in the gameplay portion, you know, how big the boost is that you get from actually bringing the correct attributed servants, and how bad it is if you bring the wrong ones, or at least have them fight the wrong enemies. So it is realistic that you could just kind of go through a cycle of different servants, like, you know, like I did. You just open up with Jalter, have her take out Himiko, and then when she gets cycled out, you have your Moon Cancer take out the Salieri, and then you could finish it off with a ruler beating up BB. It's not like we've done a lot of that, but do keep in mind that when you break BB's break bar, she will remove all of your buffs and drain your gauge by 100%, which is really really annoying, because then she's also going to pierce invincibility for 5 turns. So either take her out initially if you have a really strong ruler, or if you have a ruler that's really strong and you want them to anchor, like even someone like a Chi Shi Huang or something along those lines, they can go ahead and just beat up BB. Just be mindful of that. If you do have somebody like Zhufu does have buff removal resistance, and Nightingale Santa also has buff removal resistance that I believe she can give to somebody. So if you have those servants, maybe pick them out. I mean, obvious other ones I think is like, what, Ereshkigal I believe has that, but she's a Lancer, so it might take you a while to clear through this. But hey, if that's your only option, that's your only option. And then she's really going to struggle against that ruler, so if that is your only option, maybe bring an Avenger for that one as well, so they can kind of make Ereshkigal a little bit more effective. But that's really all there is to Advanced Quest Part 12. It's really not all that difficult. Just treat it like free Senkords. The first 2 are very easy to knock out. I don't want to scare people with the last one, but it's really not all that difficult. Again, I pretty much did like a summary Buki clear on NA or on JP. I can't replicate that on NA because I don't have summary Buki over there. But as you're seeing in the gameplay, you do get massive benefits from actually bringing type appropriate people. So with all that being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as it's free and helps me out more than you know. And as we go back into the new year and I'm not traveling around for holidays and whatnot, we will be going back to the consistent daily FGO grind. But hey, I can't help it if I have to drive like 16 hours across the country. What do you want me to do? Record the video in the car? I don't know about all that. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice one, and I'll catch y'all on the next video. Peace, late guys.